Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Mind podcast. Mind Your Mind is a podcast on spirituality, mindfulness, life, mind, universe, everything, and nothing at all. My name is Ozan, and I'm here today with Henna. Hi, Henna.
Hi, Ozan.
Now, I say nothing at all on purpose, because today's episode is the art of doing nothing. And yes, you heard that right. We're gonna talk about nothing for the entire episode. Henna knows a few things about nothing, enough to write a book about it. It's called Have You Tried Doing Nothing? And I was curious in the beginning, what can she talk about in a book about nothing? And yeah, nothing can be a very long topic. My curiosity still goes on after reading, as there are so many questions that arises from absolutely nothing. So let's dive into those now. Anna, let's talk about what nothing is. And I love the fact that in your book, you also begin with what nothing is not, as it is as crucial as what it actually is. Now, can you tell me what it is and what it is not?
Well, I think that's an apt question to begin with. I say this because I too began my book on this note. When I was ideating this book in my head, when I was planning how I'll talk about the concept of doing nothing, I realized that I was already coming from a place of conviction that doing nothing is a great thing to do. Everyone should try doing nothing. So I was already coming from that belief, coming from that place of belief, and that conviction was already there inside me because I had experienced it myself, and I just wanted to spread it out to the world. That whenever I do nothing for a while, and and then I do something after it, it is always a job well done, and I end up surprising myself with that newfound clarity and focus. So, I've spoken about this in the introduction of my book as well, if you have read that, I had spent quite a while doing nothing before this idea of book came to me. And in fact, I quit my full time job because I was desperate to do nothing for a while. So, that greatness associated, it was already very deeply associated with the concept. And I'm sure most of my readers too would have asked themselves at some point in life a basic question like, what happens when I do nothing? Or simply, what is the relevance of doing nothing? Or maybe, what actually is doing nothing? As simple as that. So, I have pondered a lot of times, is doing nothing really doing nothing? So, all these questions that everyone asks themselves at some point in their lives, basis of me trying to bring about a clarity around this concept. So through this book, and through especially through the question that I asked on the front cover page, have you tried doing nothing? All this was, I wanted to hit that nostalgia in my reader. And because I had experienced the amazing power of doing nothing, I wanted to spread it to the world, as I said. But then, since the concept of doing nothing is unfortunately quite infamous, I would say, in our society, it's not given that regard in our society, and it triggers a lot of false beliefs around it. The phrase itself sounds like a powerless activity to do. I am not even sure whether we associate it with activity, we actually regard it as sheer inactivity. And it is a weakling's way out. So it was much needed to dissolve the layer of myths surrounding doing nothing as a concept. Whatever is pulling down the concept needs to go away. And we need to see doing nothing in the new light of greatness. So that was
Mhm.
very important for me. Otherwise, it would have hit me really bad. The title itself would have repelled the people. They wouldn't have picked up a book which even said doing nothing on the front cover.
So the ultimate book about coming up with an excuse to be completely lazy, huh?
Exactly. So I did not wanted this whole thing to sound like an excuse for inactivity or sheer laziness or being demotivated or just sitting idle. It was important to first acknowledge those myths, then bust them one by one, so that I can show doing nothing in the light that it actually deserves. And only after we cross this barrier of myths, we would be able to explore the true magic of doing nothing.
Huh. So you start with what nothing is not to remove the misconceptions we have learned about doing nothing. Is that right?
Yes.
But it's also important to realize that it changes from culture to culture. For example, in my hometown in Turkey, we have it in the language that when you're not doing anything useful, you're not effective, you're not taking care of a work or a housework or anything useful for anybody, basically, you just say, I'm doing nothing. What are you doing? Ah, just nothing. But it doesn't mean that you're actually inactive or absolutely doing nothing. It just means that you're not doing anything useful. You might be watching some TV, playing some game, even sometimes taking a walk. You would still say, ah, nothing. So it is very interesting that you bring a different light to this now. When I first wanted to buy your book, I thought about this is the perfect opportunity to tell people why I'm lazy. But that's not the case, is it?
Yes, I mean, of course, there is one angle, a curiosity angle to it, that someone would pick up a book which says doing nothing right on the cover because they are curious to know what's inside it, because they have always disregarded this as a concept, and they would be curious to explore how can a whole book be by this name. But beyond that, I also wanted kind of regard that you associate with this activity or whatever inactivity. I wanted my readers also to start with this thought that doing nothing is actually not a very wasteful exercise, but it can be really,
Mhm.
really useful if understood in a right way.
Can be useful if it's understood in a right way. Now, I will have questions about the benefits of actually doing nothing. But before that, I want to ask you to clarify further what is actually doing nothing. As I understand that doing nothing, what you mean is different than doing nothing, as in, for example, what I just said, like sitting down and watching TV or reading something. What counts as doing nothing?
Doing nothing is exactly what it is, what it sounds like. It is just taking a break, unplugging yourself from the compulsion of being busy.
Hmm.
So if you remember, the concept of break is right there from our childhood when we are in school to even when we start working in the corporate world. Break is always, it is a constant part of everywhere we go. We all need a break and we realize it, but we do not know what we are taking a break for. All we know is that we are stopping work for a while, and then just to gain a little focus, probably just to regain back a little clarity from whatever has been going on in our head, we are just taking a break, and snap, we are beginning again. So, this concept of break has always been around. We call it breaking the day, we call it taking a rest, or we call it leisure time. But actually, everything starts from there. Every new thing begins after you take a pause to reflect. That is doing nothing. It is an activity where you just set your mind free, where you let your mind wander where it wants to go without guiding it, without making it work hard, without making an effort. So it is an effortless exercise which you can do just by sitting around and probably just observe what is happening. That's it. So
Hmm.
doing nothing it can be anything. It can be watching TV also and zoning out in front of a TV set. It can also be doing a very contemplative exercise like a painting or a drawing a flower. I do a lot of doodling in my free time. I don't even realize it's an unintentional thing. Whenever I'm listening to music, I start doodling with it. When I'm trying to pay attention to something, like for example on a call, I start doodling on a piece of paper if I have a pen in my hand. So these are the things that let you focus, and they are a part of doing nothing.
Now, I'm from a culture where if you take 10 minutes coffee break instead of 5 minutes, you will feel the hot breath of your boss in your neck because you're lazy, right? So this is the misconception about doing nothing, but in reality, it's actually increasing the productivity and creativity, isn't it? Which we have another episode on because I am just obsessed with productivity and creativity topics. But I definitely agree with that from my experience that all the ideas, what you seek, actually come when you stop seeking it, when you not work, but take a break, do something else. Then everything comes. Unexplained phenomenon, right? But true. Let's focus on the benefits now. What are the exact benefits that I will get when I doing nothing?
Well, as I said, the benefits are numerous because it all starts by doing nothing. That's the very core message that I want to convey. Everything you do or everything you want to do, you must start by doing nothing. And that's the core message because it works. Doing nothing works. It works for me, and I want to spread the message out there that it works for everyone if you just do it in right proportion. And that is why I asked this question up front on the very cover of my page, that have you tried, have you dared to do nothing? By doing nothing, basically, as I said, it's like creating a white space in your brain. It's like creating clean corner in your brain so that you
It's
are
like a
able to
blank
absorb.
paper.
Yeah, you can only write on a blank paper. You can only record more information when you start with a blank screen or a blank paper. You cannot write on a paper which is already filled. You need a space. You need a space in your brain where you can absorb more information. And in this information loaded world, we are constantly taking in information. We are not filtering it out. And it's unfortunate that we are not able to filter it out. The capacity of our brain is already overloaded. It's already overloaded. No?
Mhm.
I read a very interesting term called infobesity.
Sounds pretty cool, but no idea.
Infobesity is information obesity. The two words form this. Yeah. It was hilarious to me. It sounded hilarious, but it is true.
Now I'll feel cool when I use it in a sentence finally.
All of us are suffering from this disease called infobesity. And that is the very reason why doing nothing is a very crucial thing to do at this point of time, at this current moment.
Mhm,
So basically, it just means taking a break, clearing some space in your head to be able to absorb better. And everything starts from there. Every benefit that you talk of, be it getting into a mode of contemplation, regaining back your focus and clarity, getting into the world of stillness, once you start experiencing everything in slow motion.
mhm,
Otherwise, everything is a blur. If you're passing by anything too fast, the scenery outside is always a blur. You're not able to see everything in it. We are speeding through our lives, and it is important to press the brake and slow down
mhm,
so that you are able to see around yourself more clearly. So I think that is the basis of everything. And in that moment, you're able to reflect on the whys and the hows and even face your insecurities head on. So everything starts by doing nothing. I think that is the very benefit. There are numerous benefits because whatever we do, we can get back to doing it by doing nothing for a while.
It's like the cleaning up the mind. Is that correct?
Right.
I mean, I agree with you on that. As a also a lean consultant, the whole concept of lean is basically getting rid of the waste of money, effort, time, blah blah blah, whatever. But removing waste also increases the efficiency, reduces the disturbance. But when you apply to the mind, it's basically also improves your focus. Because when the mind is too full, you're just distracted. You don't know where to focus. You don't know what is important. Or there are so many unimportant things on top of the important things. It's very hard to spot them. It's like that Zen story where a man goes to a Japanese Zen master and he pours him some cup of tea, and the cup becomes full, but the master keeps flowing, and it overflows, and the man says, "It's overfull, no more will go in." And Zen master says, "Like the cup, you are too full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?"
Hmm.
And it's definitely true. We make our minds full with everything, most of the things which don't even matter,
Yes.
right? What happens when we empty it?
And it's
Yeah, I generally agree with you on this one. And I think we all have stories like this where we are just drowning in thoughts and we need to find an answer or decide on what to do. And we just can't because so many thoughts there. Our cup is completely full and we go and go and go and go. And as soon as we stop, we find the answer. Because after then, the mind has room to breathe, room to be alive. So that takes me to the next question, actually. Mindfulness has really become one of the buzzwords lately. But can you tell me what is the difference between doing nothing, being mindful?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question because I think it's very obvious to uh, because of these two terms are really similar, and it's very obvious to get confused. It's quite natural to take one for another. I would rather put it in this way: when you do nothing for a while, you start getting mindful. In other words, doing nothing is the starting step to being mindful. Mindfulness is an outcome of doing nothing.
mhm,
And mindfulness is actually an effort. If you look at it, you are applying your energy, you're applying an effort to pay attention to all your actions. And that is
you're
being
doing
mindful.
something.
Yes, you're doing something. It's like you are guiding your mind. Whereas when you're doing nothing, you're setting your mind free. So you're just sitting and letting your mind go where it wants to and maybe observing where it goes. But when you're being mindful, you're actually taking calculated actions. You're making moves and trying to understand each and every move. So that is an effort in its own self. The difference lies there. Doing
Mhm.
nothing is the first step to mindfulness, or you can say mindfulness is the outcome of doing nothing.
hmm So when you're mindful, your attention is actually where your mind is, where you are, what's going on, and everything around you. But when you're doing nothing, where is your attention?
Your attention is where you want it to be. You are actually making a choice there. You are letting yourself free from the compulsion of being busy. When I say being busy, it's not being busy in what you're really passionate about, but it can be just being busy out of the compulsion of being busy. That, I have to do this work. I need to do this work. Those have tos and need tos. You are freeing yourself from those things. You're actually doing what you really want to do for a while, even if it just means sitting idle. It can be that, and there's nothing wrong with it if it is just for a while. You are not going to drift towards negativity in a snap. You are going to take some time before that. Even if those negative thoughts come rushing to you, which you are trying to dodge, I think it's always a good idea to face them head on rather than pushing them away or escaping from them. So, diverting your attention is not a very good idea. Distractions are not a very good idea when it comes to facing real life situations. So, I think when you are taking everything head on, the things become more clear, and you must give yourself time to take those things head on. Everything starts by doing nothing. So when you let yourself do nothing, you're going to the next step of doing these complicated things, which maybe we'll talk about in our further episodes.
Now, I'm pretty sure many people who are listening to this are thinking that, okay, doing nothing sounds cool, but what is a practical way of doing it? So, can you give more practical example on how do you do nothing in the best way? Is there an optimal way or duration to do that?
Well, it's a very subjective question. There is no optimum time. There's no one size fits all. I don't know how much thinking are you doing at the moment? How much engrossed are you? How much attention are you paying at this time? Is it equal to the attention that I'm paying in this episode? We can never really compare those things, right? We can never
Mm-hmm.
really quantify these things. I cannot really give a number to how many hours or how many minutes you need to do nothing before you can actually start performing to your best. But you will know when you actually get into that zone that yes, now I'm ready to face whatever comes my way. So it's like you take a while to just declutter everything that is messing you up and come back refreshed, with new energy, with new focus. And yes, you will know it yourself. Nobody can really give you that, you need this much time off.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways in which different people cope up with how they regain their focus, and those ways are actually about doing nothing. They all may be some other activities. If you maybe you're switching to another activity, you're taking a walk outside in the park or something, but it is again a way of doing nothing, because you
Mm-hmm.
are creating that white space in your mind. You're creating that space to take up more information, to to do more work. That exactly is doing nothing. Doing nothing never ever literally means doing nothing. It doesn't literally translate to sitting idle. It can be that, but it is not always that. It's like, you choose your own style.
Also, we're addicted to doing something constantly, like all the time, aren't we? Like we can't sit still, but we get bored quickly.
Yes, we are so fidgety all the time. We can't sit still. And even the entry into the magical spiritual world, if there is a spiritual audience that I have, then they would know what I'm saying at this moment, because they would know that meditating is a form of doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, you appear really calm. You are doing nothing at all. But inside your head, you are actually doing something very deep. You do not look busy while you're meditating, do you?
Well, it depends. Okay, I have a story about this, and it kind of proves your point. Early in my engineering career, I discovered this fact that you not do anything and then the ideas come to you. All the engineers know that. They'll know what I mean because this is kind of an unwritten rule. When I learned this fact, I started to use it to maximize its effect. So I meditate a lot. I meditate for 15, 20, 30, 40, even 50 minutes sometimes. I've even done like hour or hour and a half for meditations. And it's just amazing effects. Every time I do, I have amazing experiences. And as soon as it's over, I have the answer to all the questions I had in the beginning of the meditation. Works every time. Works magically. So I do that lots of times. And over time, it starts to work less and less. And it comes to the point where it just doesn't work at all. And I'm sitting in a meditation and I'm like, okay, It should be a general 15 minutes meditation, and by the end of it, I should get my answers. And nothing comes. And I don't understand why it stopped working.
So actually, you are taking meditation as just another piece of work.
Exactly, it was in my to-do list. It was in my calendar. And that was a problem. It was part of the work. It was not doing nothing for me. It was work for me. When I was doing the meditation, I was partially thinking how many minutes is left and what is the next phase of the meditation, how my breath will change and when will it end and when will the ideas come. I'm seeking it, not doing nothing. What really helped me change this is when I understood what meditation is all about. It's not something you just sit down and do. You know, if you did any meditation on the internet, there are a lot of meditations, and most of them just make you listen to your breath, feel your breath, and just focus on it for a while. Ever wondered where it comes from? Because there's no magic in breath. The magic lies in your attention focusing on the breath. Because as soon as you put your attention onto your breath, you are focusing in the moment. Your senses, your body senses, are your direct contact with the present moment. Only contact to be exact. And when you give your attention into the present moment, that is where the inspiration is coming from. It's not coming from the breath, it's coming from your attention being present.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you know your attention can't be in two different places. It needs to focus. When you're focusing on one thing, you can't focus on the other. If you have multiple things in your mind, then you have no focus. Attention is scattered all around. That's a mind that's hurting itself. That's a mind that will not come up with creative solutions and new ideas. As soon as you focus your attention in the present moment, you focus on your breath, feel your breath. Feel how it's going into your nose. Feel how it's going out of your mouth. How it's going in your diaphragm. Feel your skin, the sensations on your skin. The frequency is what you hear around on your left ear, right ear. What you see when you focus on the present moment through your physical senses by putting attention onto them. That's when the mind is focused, and it is, in your terms, doing nothing, and then this manifests creating for the mind.
And it's interesting that your ways of doing nothing, your definition of doing nothing keeps changing over time, because doing nothing is, in the end, it's all about breaking the monotony. You cannot really ever assign one way of doing nothing because that will create monotony. And the whole purpose is to break the monotony. So, just like you said, after a point, even meditation started to bore you. Even the question of meditating was a big question mark that, why am I doing this? Or how much time do I need to complete this? Whatever you're doing in the moment of doing nothing cannot be your goal. It is a leisure activity, it cannot have benchmarks.
So you can't really add do nothing on to-do lists or calendars of any project, right? For this project, the task today is do nothing so that tomorrow you will have the answer for this task.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course you can give yourself a day off. You can to unwind and to come back with a fresh perspective. Of course you can do that, but you cannot really go list by list on what are you going to do on that day, because again that would be a task, a to-do list which you need to complete. So that is not a good idea. Just let your mind be and watch where it goes.
And also stop thinking about the result of doing nothing, but focus on the process itself. Well, Hannah, thank you very much for today's conversation. Always so lovely to speak to you, and you brought a completely different light into the nothing. And I hope who listened are somehow inspired, and yeah, maybe some listeners will try it themselves and see the effects.
I'm sure, of course. Thank you so much, Ozan, for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Yeah, see you.